Hello and welcome to the Charles Cook Podcast. Focus of this podcast is local and state issues here in the state of Tennessee. Want to remind you, you can follow my podcast, like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, Google Podcast, um, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Alexa, and a few other ones as well. So if you're driving and you want to listen to a podcast, you can follow on the audio platforms like Spotify. And if you got time to watch the videos, you can do it on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook. So uh, just like and subscribe. And if you want to contact me, you can email me at charlescookpodcast@gmail.com. And maybe you have a show idea or would like to come on and join me. So just keep that in mind. Well, today, I'll focus a little bit on the grassroots movement here in Tennessee. I've got a new guest, Dennis Walsh. He is from the Roane for Liberty. That's out of Roane County here, Kingston area. So, Dennis, welcome to the podcast, and tell us a little bit about your group and how you got started. Maybe a little bit about yourself as well.
Okay, well, thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.
Anyway, Rome for Liberty started as a result of a group in Knoxville called Knox for Liberty.
Okay.
And I had a friend I used to work with who told me I'd be interested in this, maybe come and check it out. That was probably about a year ago. And I did, and I liked it. I liked what they were saying. Very patriotic, pro-America, of course. And they were just tired of taking it. And I thought, man, if that doesn't sum up my feelings about perfect as well. So I started attending their monthly meetings, and I realized that it was very local, and they had a lot going on in the Knoxville area, not only in the city, but in Knox County. And although what they were doing on a state level seemed apropos to anywhere in the state, the local issues dominated, perhaps 50 or 60% of their agenda. So after several meetings, I asked the lady who started that group, a wonderful patriot by the name of Tracy Smith, if she would be interested in allowing me to be a chapter, perhaps, of their group, sharing the same last part of it. So they're Knox for Liberty and we're Roane for Liberty. And she said she was going to bring it up to their board. Well, they got back to me and they said, hey, we're flattered that you want to do that, and you're welcome to use the Roane for Liberty name, which you suggested, but not as a chapter. You have to do it on your own, because we're just sort of starting out here in Knoxville as well. And we don't think we can tackle perhaps creating chapters for other groups that might pop up in other counties. So I took her advice, and I started asking people questions, friends I knew, hardware stores, the muffler guy, and just in talking. And there was a hunger, and there was an absolute starvation for people wanting to know what the heck they could do to try to take the county, the state, and the country back. And I say take it back from people who, in our opinion, are running it wrong and running it very Marxist-like in a lot of cases. And matter of fact, one day I was wearing the blue T-shirt, and I ran into the wife of one of the local police chiefs at the hardware store. And she said, hey, thank you for wearing that shirt. And I said, well, ma'am, you're welcome. She says, my husband's a police officer. And I said, and so we had a conversation. He turned out to be, again, one of the local police chiefs. And she was almost in tears, conveying the fact that the job they're doing, and certainly in the Rockwood, Harriman, and Kingston area, it isn't like the big cities. And but nonetheless, they still get beat up a lot, and they get a lot of people perhaps taunting them and occasionally throwing rocks and disrespecting them. And so she put a spark there for me too. And anyway, I made some calls to a few people I knew and went and visited them personally and says, hey, I'm interested in getting this group going. Do you want to come to the first meeting? And here's our goals, which is to primarily monitor local legislation and the legislators, monitor the state as well, and monitor federal as best we could. Recognizing that on a federal level, we probably have the least impact.
Right.
And it doesn't mean we don't monitor them and try to do what we can, but our goal is Roane County first and the state pretty much right along with it. And all we want to do is restore good rule of law, one which operates on godly principles, follows the Constitution, and a few things that we've gotten away from. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I don't know if I completely answered your question, Charles.
Well, so you got your group started, and so how long has it been going now? For about a year?
Little less than that, probably about 8 months.
Okay.
I'll make that 6 months. And we've had 3 meetings, and we had another one come up. We took a little break over Christmas and the New Year's.
Right.
And we started, I think the first meeting had 21 people, not counting myself and my wife.
Right.
And the second meeting had about 40.
Wow.
And well, our third meeting was during that ice storm. So we had a lot of impassable roads and whatnot.
Right.
And we had it at the Kingston Community Center. And in spite of the roads, in spite of the ice, and in spite of some foggy weather that night, I think we counted 48 people. And we had about 12 that were, I'll call them regulars, that have been to the other meetings, that didn't attend because they couldn't get out with the ice, or and they didn't want to risk naturally crashing and driving at night on the ice, to compound it. So, but we got a lot of interest. We've got a lot of interest, which is good. And there's, we're working on some advertising and kind of carrying the message out and getting more people.
Yeah. So how are you getting your message out now so far?
Well, a lot of it, it's been word of mouth.
Okay.
The other thing, on Veterans Day, we did a flag waving ceremony, and we had a banner. It's about 3.5 feet by 8 feet, I think, with Roane for Liberty on there. And our 2 primary contacts at this time are email, Facebook, and Instagram. We've secured the domain name for roaneforliberty.com, but we have yet to get a website. So I need some talented people that are pretty savvy in that realm, to get us a website. I think we've finally contacted one. So primarily right now, to be honest with you, is one man telling another man, one woman telling another woman or 2, and telling them, hey, we got a chance. And it's about action.
Yeah. So
it's not sitting anymore, not just having coffee with your spouse in the morning and complaining about the terrible state of affairs in a lot of areas of our state.
Right.
But it's getting up and doing something. And the meetings are good because I believe they energize people. We've had some interesting speakers and stuff, and have a lady in our group who will be running for Ken Yeager's position, as a matter of fact, this fall. There's that hunger, there's that thirst. So people want to know how to act, and it's up to us to provide them that avenue.
Absolutely.
And make a difference.
Yeah. So is Yeager retiring?
No, sir. He's running. I think if I was reading between the lines the last time I spoke to him, or he spoke to us at a Republican meeting, I think this is his last term. Yep. He's been 20 years into it now. At the end of this year, I think he said it'd be 20 years. So he wants to do 4 more. Yep. But this lady's interested in taking his place, quite honestly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. So You said the last meeting was at the Kingston Community Center.
Yes, sir.
So do you have a set place that you generally have your meeting, or do you just move it around from month to month?
Well, we started at Shoney's in Harriman, and they have a back banquet room,
Yes.
and that accommodated us for the first two meetings, but we outgrew that at that second meeting. I think that's, like I said, we had 42 or 44 people, and that was about the limit. And so it'll probably be the Kingston Community Center, but they've got some groups that have certain days booked in advance, like for the whole year, perhaps. Fridays being one of them. I think Wednesday being the other day. So, and I'm trying to navigate that with the other people in the group who are part of the GOP, like myself.
Right.
They meet the third Monday of each month, and so it's a little delicate right now, and I'm looking for that balance still. But we have Mr. Monty Fritz secured for March 8th. Unfortunately, that's a Friday, and that's one of the nights that the Kingston Community Center is booked up. So I'm going to be out tomorrow talking to a couple pastors that I know who are local to the Kingston, Rockwood area, and see if any of them allow us to hold our meeting there. I suspect if Monty's there to talk, we'll probably get a few more people.
Yeah. So you've got some folks who have come in and gotten the group excited and everything. What has been? Have you noticed anything like the interest of local politicians and stuff? How they're starting to react to the group? Have y'all had any situations where you were against something that they were pushing, and are you starting to see anything with that, with the local politicians interacting with your group?
Well, yeah, we have a man who's on the Roane County Commission, one of the commissioners, Junior Hendrickson. We met him at the school board meeting, which we went as a group to very early when we started. And we had about 25 or 26 people there, excuse me. Our primary purpose was one of the ladies we're involved with has been acutely aware of the pornographic and obscene books which have made their way into Roane County, especially to the libraries in the schools,
Right.
but not specifically that. And we went as a group to the Roane County meeting, and Mr. Hendrickson was there, and he spoke, and then a few other people spoke, and then I spoke, and identified ourselves as Run for Liberty. And so he talked to us afterwards, and he says, "Hey, I'd like to come to your next meeting and maybe talk a little bit and join your group and stuff." So after that, he's come to both meetings. He spoke at our last one, gave us sort of a like a State of the Union speech for Roane County.
Yeah.
Just give us an idea of where we're at financially, some of the stuff that's going on, and talked about zoning laws and a few things like that. Now, interesting enough, with Mr. Yeager, there's a sovereignty bill, which I'm sure you've heard of, which didn't make it out of committee last year. And so one of the things we did as a group, we send out these call to action notices, which I'm sure you're aware of, and you see them through the Tennessee Conservative Grassroots, Coalition.
Right.
And we have our own bullet points. Well, we're keen on the sovereignty issue for a lot of good reasons. I'll expand on that later. And so one of the things we did was we emailed Ken Yeager's office and said, "Hey, it didn't make it out of committee last year, but you guys have sequestered it, and we want you to push it. We want you to get the sovereignty going, because it'll make a big difference in terms of our ability to fight back against the federal government and withstand some of the pressures they may apply to the state, in terms of following unconstitutional laws, perhaps." And it came on the heels of him speaking to the GOP, saying that one of the things he was interested in is not kowtowing to the federal government for bad laws,
Yeah.
So
well,
I
find
use
out.
that. Yeah. Well, I took it and I used it just as a little bit of leverage. Well, our group emailed him, politely, hey, Senator Yeager, this died in your committee last year, but you didn't trash it, whatever the correct terminology is for that.
Right.
And by golly, he pulled it out. And I guess, and I'm not 100% sure, Charles, how this works. You might be. They pulled it out of a sequestered position and voted to not discard it and to keep it for this coming session, to vote it out, to vote again, to either get it out of committee, or the second time, if they don't, it'll die, right?
Right.
Well, the committee it was in, which I think is the Ways and Means, but don't quote me on that, voted unanimously to reconsider it for this 114th session. So I took that back to the group and I said, hey, see, it may be an election year and a few things, but maybe he's just more willing to listen to it. Maybe he sees more wisdom in the sovereignty law than he saw before. But, it was one of those little small victories, which, and maybe we weren't the only group doing that. I don't know, but he responded.
Well, I guess seeing the things that's what's happened with Texas and everything, I think they're seeing things a little different now. Hopefully, we'll see how, they just voted to take it back up again this year. They haven't voted to get it out of the committee and send it to the full Senate for a vote. But I think people are starting to take notice that this stuff is serious, because if they can do it to Texas or anybody else, they can do it to Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at some of these abortion laws and these states or the federal rights laws where, silencing and, censoring and forcing you to use pronouns, and then the Second Amendment, I think, by God, man, we've got to make a stand here. And one of the ways to do it is to enact that sovereignty law, which
Even further than that, when you have federal law enforcement arresting people for sitting at an abortion clinic and praying, and coming in and arresting those people and charging them. I think it's time for the state, the governor and the state police and everybody, the state troopers and stuff, to say, we're not going to allow that to happen in Tennessee no more. They're not, they're not, they're not physically harming anyone. We went through 8 months in 2020 with people burning buildings and burning cities and everything else. And what these people did at the abortion clinic was nothing to that effect. And they have potential of serving 10, 11 years in prison for sitting there and praying. And the people that was destroying cities and burning things got bailed out by the vice president and cohorts of hers.
That's right. Yeah, definitely two sets of standards, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
And people will probably recognize I have an accent, I think, here in East Tennessee. I'm originally from Southern California. And one of the reasons I'm here is because when we bought our property here 19 years ago, Tennessee was, and it still is, what I call a safe and sane state. But the infection started, and they arrested that man in Franklin, I believe, for reading the Bible at a pro homosexual pride rally or whatever in the park.
Yeah.
Right. They came out and they asked him to leave, and he said, well, you know what, this is a public park and all I'm doing is reading the Bible. And he wasn't screaming and carrying on like a crazy man. Then I know you're familiar with that case.
Yeah.
So when people think maybe it hadn't arrived in Tennessee yet, it has.
It has.
And, you know, it's been going on a long time in California, I'll tell you that. And probably California, New York, and maybe one or two other states, you know, they've done a good job of starting to poison the country.
Yeah. And usually the rest of the country is 10 to 15 years behind California. And so, you know, but so you're a refugee. That's the way most of us look at you guys, that you come here seeking asylum, you know,
That's the fact.
they say.
Yeah.
But you know, you guys have already seen it. And what I'm thankful for most of you folks that have come into the state is you guys have more passion, because I think and and because of that, I think it comes from what you've already seen. Uh, I think many of the residents here in the state of Tennessee are kind of like the frog in the pot. You know, they don't realize how hot the water is right now because they've just been sitting there getting used to it as they slowly have pushing this, you know, socialist agenda. But you guys have come from the worst of the worst, and you see how it started there and what's going on here right now.
Yeah, that's a fact. Matter of fact, kind of interesting. My wife and I built our own house. Uh, so it was a long, this is a 5-year project,
Right.
and a couple garages, you know, everything. So had a plumber from the Crossville area, and pretty strong country accent. And we had a couple of really kind of funny conversations. And he said in a strong accent one day, "Now, Dennis, I can't duplicate it. I won't try." He said, "What the heck brought you to the country out here in Tennessee, all the way from California?" And I told him, "Well, Jeremiah, I got to tell you, California is crazy. It's ludicrous what's going on." Well, he goes, "Well, what? Like what?" So this is already over. Yeah, this is about 11 years ago when we started. So that puts us right there in about 2013, I guess. And I said, "Well, take this. Check this out, Jeremiah. So in California, you're a student in a high school. You can go to your teacher one day and said, 'I want to be a girl today, and I want to use the girls' restroom.'" And Jeremiah's looking at me like I'm crazy myself. He says, "What? What are you talking about?" He said, "I just want to understand this. So a boy can go to someone and say, 'Hey, I want to use the girls' restroom'?" I go, "That's a fact." But I said, now they made it into law.
Yep.
So in the state of California, if you declare yourself a girl one day or a boy or whatever, you get to use that restroom. And of course, it got bigger. It had already been going on for a few years, and the state colleges were hiring these oh, I don't know what to call them, the transgender coordinators or whatever at $250,000 a year, and there's something like 20 state colleges, and their whole job was to convert these restrooms into men, women, and neutral. Now, neutral was just whatever. I don't know exactly how they did it. I don't recall, but and to make sure that they were protected class, and to make sure you had to address them, you know, by whatever they wanted to be called that day, and among other things, you know, which you're familiar with. But I mean, yeah, that's over 15, 16 years ago that all that was going on, and it's just sort of, you know, I don't know, in the last 5 or 6 years, really gotten a little more prominent here in Tennessee, I think.
Yeah. I guess it's DEI, diversity and equality and inclusion. I guess that would be the titles of that.
It would, except one thing, I gotta cut you off. It's diversity, inclusion, and equity, or die.
Yeah. 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 So now that your meetings are growing, are you seeing more people that are originally from the state of Tennessee joining you, or is it more people who moved here that are joining, or kind of a mix?
It's kind of a mix. Um, and I'd say it's about half and half. And the people from out of state are refugees as well. Illinois is a big one. Connecticut. A lot of police and fire guys are out here.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
partly because most of them are involved in some form, obviously, like city or county government, state, maybe even. And of course, those are the institutions that are into that diversity and inclusion and all that stuff. And speaking specifically of the Los Angeles area where I worked and stuff, it's forefront. Any issue comes up, personnel issue or crime issue or whatever, the first thing the officials look at, not the people with their feet on the ground, the patrol police or anything, but above there, the city officials or whatever. What color is the person and what sex is the person, and what color and sex is the person that arrested them, or whatever the situation is. And it just dominates the landscape. And so I think all of us share something in common, is we've seen that take over the states that we came from. And of course, California is a well-known example of lunacy. And so there's a lot of police and fire and guys that say, hey, we came from that, and we could see it start to happen here. And so we want to stem the tide of this infection. Is really what it's about. So, but to answer your question, it's about half and half Tennessee locals and half out of staters.
I've met several people from California. I've met some people from Pennsylvania, Illinois, New York, and but more people really from California than anywhere else. But I've met them from those states, and there's one gentleman I know left New York and uh, sent his family out 3 years before he could get out. And he stayed back and tied up loose ends and done everything he could, but he finally was able to get out and moved here to Tennessee and as happy as can be. But as you said, he already knows, hey, we're in a battle, and many people here in Tennessee don't see it that way. They think and it drives me insane when I hear these people, these conservative pundits, talk about how great Tennessee is as far as conservatism. And uh, yeah, it's not as bad as other states, but it's not where they portray it to be. You know what I'm saying? Uh,
Yeah.
I they don't, when they're talking about, no, we didn't do some of the things crazy like they did in Michigan and New York with COVID and everything, but we still had a governor that shut things down, and uh, took his time and never really give up his emergency powers and stuff. And no, as I said, we're not as bad as other states, but we've got our problems here, and if we don't get it fixed, it's going to snowball.
Yeah, now that I'm involved with the group and with the Tennessee Constitutional Grassroots Coalition, as you are, I've had my eyes open and scanning through different bills and legislation that's come up that we're keeping on the forward-facing radar. A lot of them mimic poor laws in other states. I can't specifically say which ones right now. I've been kind of overwhelmed, but we were going through potential bills that are going to be up to committee votes here soon, just on the Second Amendment issues. 79 bills, 79 separate bills on some form of Second Amendment alterations, either a plus or a minus. Most of them are kind of on the minus side, to be honest with you, and every single one of them was sponsored by Democrats. However, the bad ones anyway, we got squishy Republicans signing on to these things.
Yes.
And what I've mentioned to the group, they're like you and me, they kind of float in the same circles and ponds and stuff. But I said, one thing about the Democrats is they're a defined problem. We know the way they're going to vote. We know the kinds of things they're going to push and exactly the way they're going to act in every situation. But the problem is the Republicans.
Yes.
They leave us and they go to Nashville or Washington, D.C. They claim to be conservative and wanting to hold our values and stuff. And then pretty soon they're voting for these outrageous bills. Like they're doing it in secret, and we're going to forget the next time the election comes around or something. So,
that's pretty much the case. That's how they get reelected. That's how they spend 20 and 30 years in Nashville.
Yeah. So it's a little bit appalling, and I kind of look at it like an ocean. So California has already been swallowed by a tidal wave, but it came slow.
Right.
We had Ronald Reagan there, as a governor for 8 years, and things were pretty good up till a point, and that tidal wave, and it was on the horizon, and it just kept rising and rising, and it was coming closer and closer, and it hadn't made that arc yet where it crashes, but then it did, and they're not done yet. They've got more of them coming behind them. Tennessee's in a position right now where the swell is there.
Right.
It's just standing proud, but prouder than the other smaller swells, and left unabated, it will eventually be a tidal wave too.
Right. And when we're going to talk about what our Republicans have done, it looks like our governor has fallen right into it, and he is, the whole deal with the COVID, and then these all the taxpayer funds that they give to Ford and all that stuff. It's just, we got to get something done. We cannot elect another governor like this.
Yes, sir. And then what did he do too on education? He hired that Marxist lady who had a track record of critical race theory and the Project 1619, and everything that comes out of that lady's mouth is about race and sex, and she could give a rat's behind of the actual education process. She's a flat out Marxist, and then in turn she hired an adjunct who's an avowed communist. And those are the two people in charge of the state education right now.
Right.
So that's courtesy of Bill Lee.
Yeah. So kind of wrap this up. We've been going a little over about 35 minutes now, I think. So if somebody wants to find you and start following your group, maybe attend some meetings, how do they go about that?
The best way, Charles, for the time being would be to look up Roane for Liberty on Facebook or Instagram. And as soon as we determine where our next meeting will be, it'll be in the Kingston area, I'm pretty sure. We'll get that out on Instagram. And the other one is roanforliberty.com on Gmail. So it's roanforliberty@gmail.com, I should say.
Yeah.
And I'll respond to those emails. So roanforliberty@gmail.com.
And so they can just email you and say, hey, when's your next meeting? Where's your next meeting going to be? And you'll be glad to let them know and try to give them some information on how to attend. Correct?
Absolutely. And to kind of finalize things, it's opportunity to act. It's an opportunity to not have to roll over and take these bad decisions that are being done. And we may not be able to solve it obviously right away, but we'll have good memories, and we will work to vote in people that are going to hold our standards, you know, uh, hold up to our standards of God, liberty, country, family, pro-life, and pro-Second Amendment. And those that go away from that, we're going to vote them out. We'll make sure they're one-term people. And with the amount of grassroots organizations that are popping up in these different counties, I believe we'll be capable of making a difference.
Yep. Yes, I do too. And I think that's where the work is to be done, is at the local and state level. Uh, it's we have the ability to talk to our county commissioners, city council, state representatives, state senators, basically every week. We have that ability, and uh, if not, go knock on the door of their front door of their house. So, and I think that's the right approach to get things done. So, anyway, so I appreciate you joining me, Dennis, and I hope everything goes well. I hope I can help you get the word out and uh, continue for your group to grow and make changes there and help us uh, fix this state and kind of put this socialist brush fire that's growing in the state. You got spots all over the state, and we
Yeah.
look at the big cities, but we're not looking at what we're seeing in the smaller towns that's being pushed by county commissions and small town mayors and city administrators and planning commissions and stuff. So it's not just in the big cities; it's happening everywhere.
Yes, sir, it is. There's a mighty infection going on. A lot of United Nations stuff making its way here too.
Yep, absolutely. It's where it's all been driven from. So, you know, it just slowly working its way down. So, all right, you got anything else you want to add before we finish up?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Charles Cook. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to say hi to fellow citizens here, and I hope you find some interest in what's going on. We're not crazy people. We love God, we love our families, we love life, and we love Tennessee. I'm telling you, and we just want to help preserve it.
Well said, my friend. All right, everyone, we thank you. If you're in the Roane County area, look these guys up, and if you're looking for groups in your county or your area, and you don't know, email me. Maybe I can help you find a group in your area that you get involved in. All right. All right. God bless you. Thank you all for joining the podcast. Share this information, and we'll see you on the next podcast.